Hey YouTube, this is Nolan. I know I haven't videoed in a while, but you know, life, laziness, you know, the regular teenager thing. That sort of thing. I wanted to do this special video because for the past 2 years I have been working on a world. Yes, I've made my own world. I am now God. I've created my own world. It's a fantasy world in Columni. I have Crystal, otherwise known as Pariswinkle, on me. Say hi, Crystal.
こんばんは、皆さん、パリウィンクルです。
If you can understand that gibberish, I think that was her introducing herself.
日本語で紹介する。
Anyway, she has been basically the wall I've been talking to the entire time with this world. Imagine when I start talking about this, I think you'll realize why. You'll realize I say she's a wall because she's had to deal with a lot of this, and I know it's a lot of boring. Well, it's not boring. Well,
You backed yourself into a corner there.
it's basically a history lesson.
Kind of, yeah. He's really built up this huge history for his world. It's actually really interesting to me.
Yes, and nobody cares what Crystal thinks, so
Thanks.
I do this out of a protective nature. I'm actually like very scared right now. Don't kill me, YouTube. Don't turn me into PewDiePie.
Oh no.
I'm not a Nazi. Okay.
Now that you said it, everybody's gonna think you're a Nazi.
Yes, I'm
Neo-Nazi.
bringing politics into this. How dare I? Anyways, I guess I should start off this video, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I guess I'll start talking about my world. My world is called Columni. It's so creative because this world is flat and it's on a column. It is a flat world that sits on top of a column, and it is in a sphere. I cannot explain it because it's just so difficult to really describe.
Do you mean that it's round?
Okay, so on the out, so it's a material universe, and what I mean by that is when the creator came, and yes, it was created by a creator, it was nothing but a big ball, and he went into it and he hollowed it out, and in the middle of this he left a column, and underneath this column is a sea of black clouds. And if you were to look on the outside of this ball, on the outside of the universe, it would just look like this big. You see, I can't explain it. It's just so surreal. I tried, but anyways, there are holes on this shell. Like, you know, this ball is its shell now that it's hollow. The stars are little holes, and on the other side of the holes, on the surface of this shell, is the afterlife.
Oh, okay, so it's like a little dome shell almost.
Repeat that?
It's got like a dome-ish type shell thing going on.
Yeah, like, it's like a dome. So,
yeah.
But that's the universe. That's what the universe looks like. Columni itself is a flat world. It does not turn. Actually, the moon and sun revolve around it, and actually, the entire sphere goes around the column. It's a very. Well, I already said it. Surreal. I'll be including artwork during this video, so you know I'll add it in. But Anyways, let's get to actual Columni. I don't want to talk about the creation, really. I will talk about... Well, I will talk about one part of the creation, that the creator had created the world in the as if he was an artisan. He was an artist. Uh, he sought beauty in everything, basically me, and he went to each and every hillside, cliff, even the bottom of the smallest brook. Every single detail was put in place. And when he created time, it started, and Dune, all of a sudden hills were destroyed. A lot of what he had created eroded, but they also built up. Time had started, and change had immediately started with that time. He had an
Oh,
apprentice
okay.
with him, an apprentice named Telo, and she was to become the warden of this universe, the goddess of the universe, the warden of the realm. And she had looked at her master and said, "Why would you create such a destructive force on your artwork?" And he said, "Because true art changes." And this was not art to him. While she saw it as art, it was not to him. It was progress.
Makes sense.
Well, I'm glad it makes sense to you. It doesn't...
Well,
Like,
I mean, artists do view their work like that sometimes. Like, they might not view their own work as artsy per se, but someone else might go, wow, that is really cool. And then you're like, it's a starting point.
I know, I'm so pretentious with my work. Oh, it's not art. Well, anyways, let's get to actually Columni now that I've talked about the creation and such. So, the creator had left and left Tello in charge of Columni. He had created 100 boys and 100 girls. And they were all babies. So, Tello was to learn what this humanity was like. She had raised these 200 children on her own, in the middle of the desert, on what would be called, on the continent that would be called Masintra,
That is
which,
an impressive feat.
oh, I know, she must have hated kids after that.
Uh-huh.
Just imagine being caught in the middle of a desert with all these children. They
With
had
200
surrounded an
children, my
oasis, though,
goodness.
so it wasn't that bad. What did you say?
Oh, I was just commenting on how interesting that must have been. Considering with what her personality seems to be from what you've told me so far, yeah.
Yeah, she's you'll get to understand what Telo is like as Columni progresses, because I do want to make it clear she is not omnipotent. She is she does not know all. She does not see all, and she sees this as a curse that her master had forgotten to give her. So
Mm.
the children grow up and they make homes around this oasis. She had taught them how to fish, how to garden. They all saw her as mother. That is what Telo in their ancient language means. Mother. But it's a different type of mother. It was all mother. I don't
Oh,
want to
okay.
get into their language right now, but I do plan to actually expand on their language. A lot of what you're going to be hearing is going to be a lot of English names, because I speak English. But if I actually get
Yeah.
to writing this down, I'm actually going to put more creativity into it when it comes to the language.
And you can always change things too.
Oh yeah. Oh, that'll be such a dream that I'll actually be able to listen to these and like actually write down what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Alright, back to Columni. So, so 100 boys, 100 girls, they all create, they create a village. And after they had their children, Telo goes to enter the afterlife, as many of their children had faced their first death.
Oh,
Which
okay.
as you know, this was it's an ancient world, and Telo is not going to be a very she's not going to be a very giving goddess. She wants to make sure that these people are not dependent on her. So after they have had their own children, she goes and starts regulating the afterlife and creating her own world. That is the only real domain that is hers, the afterlife. So she
I
goes up
see.
there, and they're left to their own devices. Any questions?
Yes. How long was it before they had their own children and before she left?
So, this actually is a good question because it'll help me explain time, how they kept time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because they know when because they had Telo telling them, basically she taught them the concept of time and how long a year was in Columbian time, which is, they call, there was this very big star on one side. That would be their version of our North Star.
Oh, okay.
And it'll go around the sky, and when it's finally gone around the entire sky, that is a year in their time.
I see.
It's a bit longer than our year.
Okay.
Especially since real quick, Columni. Alright, you know how our world is round? If you took that and flattened it, took all the entire surface and spread it out, Columni would be twice as big.
Oh, wow.
And then circulared, or turned into a circle, so that it's a pretty big world. So a year in their time is pretty big. It's a pretty long time.
Okay.
But I won't go into details how long of a time. But so their time goes by those years, and there is no AD or BC. There is just the year 100. That is 100 years after the creator had left and left Leto in charge. Or Leto. Telo.
Hello.
This is not Greek. Left Telo in charge. So I would say this is about the first couple would probably have had their first child by 18 because there is something called the factorial laws that will be integrated into the governments that will come up later. And that is.
I think you were telling me about this before.
Yeah, it's basically talking about social rules, and this specific factorial law was divine in that there will always it doesn't go to everyone, but for these 100, for one girl there is a boy, for one boy there is a girl. There is someone you were born to love. And
okay.
And within their lives, they would find one another, They would figure out which one.
So they believe in soulmates. Or rather,
yes.
The laws.
Exactly. They were soulmates. They were created for one another. That was a purpose by the creator so that, there would be no evidential destruction.
That is really sweet, but I do have a question regarding that.
You do?
How do they know?
Well, how do you know when you found the one?
Some people never know.
And that is
Oh,
why I said that at least for these 100 people, it was an evident law that these first 200 people would find each other.
right.
They were the gifted ones.
Yeah, I'm
they
guessing.
they were they were put into a very hard existence that I'm glad at least the creator was nice enough to bestow upon them love.
Exactly, yeah.
That they're going to be struggling their entire lives. At least they don't have to struggle. At least the first ones don't have to struggle with love.
Right, yeah. And then all future generations do.
Just very sweet. Anyways, so this is a very cryptic time. It's going to be very difficult to really pinpoint every single history. So this ancient history. So I'm going to be quite vague. I will admit that right now that I'm a history geek and I love going very specific. I believe there are certain times when the vagueness of ancient history has been more entertaining than knowing every single date. So I will be going like a few generations later. I will be kind of skipping, because I don't want to
Okay.
go into vague. I don't want to go into very specific, albeit boring details.
That's fine.
So, about 4 generations later, the oasis all of a sudden dries up, quite mysteriously. This has now formed into a moderately sized, city, and it was quite disgusting. There were leavings. There were no laws of leavings
Oh, okay.
or anything, and the old friendships that the original 200 had fallen apart because sometimes children do not carry on the devotions of their parents.
Right, yeah.
So it was turning into a city, and you don't know everyone in a city.
Right.
Division had really started, and there were three great divisions when the oasis had dried up. There was a witch, a scholar, and a warrior. The witch's name is lost to us, but we do know that her people had decided to travel south away from the
So,
oasis because she had believed that she had a vision that there was a green river to the south that flowed through the desert. This desert was named Olagost,
okay.
and this land and so it was they had no food, no water, so people had believed, well, we had seen you do great things. She was actually a witch. I do not want to real quick, I don't want to say like, oh, she was like a con person. I'll explain magic at a better time, but she's legit.
Okay.
She actually has magic. So she travels south with her group. After about 2 weeks of traveling, they're starving. People are dying, and they decide. And one night, as she slept, a group of people decided they don't trust her anymore, and her group mutinied against her.
Oh dear. Was she killed or?
She was killed. She was smothered in her sleep.
I probably could have realized that, like, if I thought about it more, like, oh yeah, while she was asleep. Okay.
No, there was one. No, there was one issue, however. Telo had watched this, and she had watched their entire journey. And then when the
Okay.
mutiny happened, she was disappointed. She couldn't believe that they would not have trust in their fellow, in someone that was so legitimate as a witch. That someone actually had the power, someone who had great power, and they would falter to her. She was very disappointed in
Oh
them,
wow.
and as punishment, she had revealed to them. She leveled the dunes with her mighty powers left to her from the Creator. She leveled the dunes, and not like 3 leagues away. That is 9 miles. Just 9 miles away, there was the promised river,
Oh, they just
bearing
kept
fruit,
going.
bearing beautiful fruit. And she said, "This is what you will never see."
Ooh.
Then she leveled the river. She made the dunes overwhelm the river. And this
Oh
group of
my.
people, she had left one she had left one gift. She said, "I am not heartless, as I still love you all." So she taught them how to make a gourd, and she gave them gourds. And once she gave them the
Okay.
gourd, she gave them one final thing. A lemon.
A lemon.
A lemon. You know, the
A lemon.
fruit. She gave them a lemon. A sour fruit. In the middle of the desert.
That is cruel.
Now this, she had given them a lemon. Just one. But it was full of seeds. And she said, "If you dare find it, you will plant these if you wish to live out here." And these people would become the desert dwellers.
Okay.
Next was the scholar. And his name, I have it written down. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I have this.
Okay.
This scholar's name, he had a really cool name too. That's why I want to look for this real quick. I don't just want to make it up on the spot. I don't want to lie to you.
Okay.
So while I'm looking it up, how am I doing?
You're doing really good, actually. I'm just worried that I'm not talking enough or I'm asking the wrong questions.
I'm not like being boring or anything, am I?
No. I think it's quite interesting.
Leave it in
People
the
are listening.
people, if you're actually listening, if you're actually like watching this, please tell me what you think about the world. If you have any suggestions or anything, I'll read them.
Put them in the comments, and if you like what Nolan has to say, like the video.
Thank you. Now the first
Subscribe
one.
if you want to hear more.
This. All right. I found his name. Soliben. Like Soliben. Soliben.
Okay.
He was a great scholar and he knew how to write. He had created the language I was talking about. He had made it into a written language, and he was gifted with Telo was very surprised that someone had come so quickly as a great man. So while she never really gave it to him in person, she gifted him with it in secret. He was given a very fine. He was given the gift of silver tongue.
Oh.
He knew how to craft the perfect word. He had created this language, so he might as well have been the master of it.
Right.
So he was a very pious man who believed that the Creator needed to be worshipped. He said that he had given us life. Why must we forget about him? Even Telo says that we shall not worship her. But the Creator gave us life. We need to give him thanks. He was not a fanatic, but he was a very honorable man, and he was very respectful. He very much enjoyed the life he was given, and he very much enjoyed the world that was. He believed that the world was created specifically for them.
Right.
And that is a gift that can never be repaid. So a very solemn respect is to be given. Even if he's not there, it's still to be respected.
Right.
So, being a logical man and a man of sciences as well, he felt the winds and felt that the winds were going to take them to land, to a much more suitable land. He said that he could imagine a forever oasis, as he put it. Of course, this is probably him talking about it's green around an oasis. Perhaps he's talking about how a land forever green.
Right.
He believed that going to the east would take, or west. Which one would work better?
I'm not sure. If you make it east, there could be some Asian jokes made about, the stereotypical smart Asians. So I don't know. It depends on what you want to do.
Okay, I'm thinking back on the map. Okay, I'm thinking, what, I think west will do better, because how I'm picturing post-Mavros, spoilers, well, not really a spoiler, but post-Mavros map, I'm thinking, I think east would be or west would be a better idea.
Okay. Then let's go with west.
Alright. So he decides to go, Soliben decides to take his group west to follow the winds. And it was not a long journey. It was probably about a week's journey. And that was just them walking. So he comes across these mountains where the dunes pile up on one another. They climb the dunes, and on the other side are rocks. And over the rocks, he sees nothing but green on the horizon. He sees trees. He sees great plains. And he knew that he was right as the winds pushed him up the mountain. So his people were like, "Whoa, he was right." And he really started the first religion, when you really think, because all of a sudden he was looked at as a holy man. He was a man. While they knew he was a great man, they never thought. They had made it in their mind that he was a great man because the Creator that he spoke so fondly of had made him such a great man. So they almost started worshiping him.
Ooh. I can see where this is going, but I'm curious to see what you do with it.
Well, anyways, so they want him. Well, you've taken us to the land. Tell us what we should do next. He had really decided. He thought that they would decide just to disperse and stuff, go their own ways. But now he found himself that he was in the center of a community, and he liked that idea. Though he was a very wise man, he was also he was still a man. He was still human. And he liked the attention. So they went to a big hill that was right next to a river. And they set up a home. This home would become the temple. The temple of the Creator. And we will hear more about them later.
Okay.
The third and final group was Herek.
Oh, I've heard of Herek.
Now, Herek is an interesting character and very different from the others. When you really think about him, when you really do a character study on him, he's sort of like that one guy from Lord of the Flies. Jack. He's like Jack from Lord of the Flies. I want to be king. Let's go hunting all day. I don't want to be responsible.
Okay.
He's sort of like that. He's not very smart. He's very strong. He's older than Soliben. Soliben is probably in his 20s. Meanwhile, Herek is in his 30s, and he's older than the other two were. And, you know, people look up to him. They see him as a very strong person, and he knows what people want. He goes north. He went north by no other basis. He had no reason to go north. But he said, God damn it, I want to go north. All the other two are going that way. I'm going the other directions. I might as well go that way. Well, that failed. About a week, everyone was miserable, and there was no hope in sight. So he knew Soliben was a very smart person. So he remembered that Soliben was following the winds. So he said, "Oh, we should go this way." But he wasn't hinting that he was going the way of the winds, like Soliben. He didn't want to admit Soliben was right.
Oh, okay.
So they start going that way, because you know you're in a desert. You can't really tell which way you're going anyways, but he was smart enough to know. Even though he was stupid, he had the cleverness to know.
Okay.
So they start going west. Did I say east before? Well, either way, they go west. You know, okay, they were going west. If I mess up, if I keep saying east, I mean west. So they go out west.
East is west, guys.
And he comes to a very different site than what Soliben had found. Instead of lush, rich plains, he had come more to the snow.
Okay.
He found himself in a forest that
So I guess he didn't go south enough. He didn't go far south enough.
Yes, he didn't go south enough. He was just high enough to where he came across a tundra, you know, like a cold desert, and then he had found himself in a very cold place. He had found himself in a forest, and then he had found snow, and he did not like the snow. So he decided to go back down south, and that's when he found a mixture between it's like a swampland sort of.
Oh, so Florida.
Basically Florida. Yes, it's very humid. I do want to say that it's a very humid land. It's a mixture between a swamp and a desert. It's a very weird mixture. Like I said, I'll probably be drawing this land. I'll be doing some crude sketches for this video, so I'll try my best to present it.
Okay.
Well, so they go there. Oh, and I do want to mention that Herek's group was the biggest.
Oh, okay. I'm guessing because he was a crowd pleaser. That more.
Yeah, he's a crowd pleaser, definitely. So, yeah, that's because he liked, like, instigating fights and stuff. You know, people like, whether you like it or not, humans are naturally aggressive, whether you do it with your words or your physique.
Mm-hmm.
And he really catered to that. Whether knowingly or not, he catered to it. So I do not want to... I know I've been talking to him in a very, like, disappointing tone. I do want to say that I don't think Herek is necessarily wrong with what he's doing. To a lot of us, that it's like, oh, he's just an idiot who's trying to get, attention and such. I do want to say that, yeah, he's an idiot, but he knows what he's, and he doesn't know what he's doing, but, he knows he's powerful, and, that is no different than what, the witch or Soliben was doing.
That's true, yeah.
Soliben was using his words, the witch was using her trust, and Herek was using his, his cleverness, when you really want to think about it. He was using his physique and cleverness. So he was using a skill. Don't think that he's any lesser than the other two. they basically applauded him because they're like, "Oh, you take us to a better place," and it was very bountiful with food. They were eating snakes.
Oh wow. Okay.
I want to say that because that'll become very important later in a cultural sense.
Oh, okay.
Because they named their settlement Herek.
After Herek.
Yes, after Herek. So, I'm going to be skipping a little bit ahead now because this is going to be very mundane. I just want to say real quick that Soliben dies and the temple, but he led an extraordinarily long life, and
Oh,
he
okay.
really dedicated himself to the sciences. And quite shockingly, he had created masonry. He had taught people how to write or how to carve stone.
Okay, so they were writing in stone then?
Yeah, they had created powerful enough tools to really build with stone. I don't want to don't think of it as very fancy. It was very crude, but it was a very good start.
Okay.
So they start building a big temple, and they were living in a theocracy, where think of it like the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay. So
But
very
everyone
close
lives in the
after.
same building, and there's more regulation. Because remember in the Oasis there was leavings everywhere. People were relieving themselves anywhere. There was no real order.
Yeah.
So
So
the temple
very
was more strict about it, where
very
they actually created etiquette and such. They were like, okay, we need to change this. If we're going to be living in this building, we better get better at this. So they had
yeah.
so Soliben had written down the first law codes. Um, he had he really had started civilization, if you really want to think about it. But Herek was also there. Herek
Please tell
had
me one of the commandments was thou shalt not defecate in the street.
thou shalt not
Please tell
defecate.
me.
I like that. Oh my god, that is perfect. Thank you, Crystal. I think I'll actually make that into something.
Oh God.
Oh my god. I was actually thinking of basing Soliban's codes off of Hammurabi's Code of Laws.
Oh my goodness.
So that is just perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, anyways, Herrick had also created like the anti-Solibanian um, world. This one was more
How did he
based
do
on
that?
what?
How did he do that?
Well, he basically became the first king.
Okay.
They were very his people. I'll admit weren't exactly the smartest. They didn't really understand what Soliben was. They were really the people that when Soliben would be sitting on his rock or whatever, and he would be talking about trying to teach, his language and such. They weren't very interested. They wanted to do things. They wanted to be the ones that hunted, fished. They were more hardy. They wanted to be more active.
Right, they weren't intellectuals.
So they weren't stupid, but they weren't intellectual. So they really looked up to Herrick. They really thought he was a very good guy. So they really built like they create like they chopped down trees. They did what remember I they chopped down trees. They created houses. Oh, the little huts and such. They
Right.
had really started making a life for themselves. They had a form of slavery uh, where if you they like I said before, Herrick liked to fight, and
Okay.
dueling became a very like wrestling and stuff became very popular. And
Oh, so they were the ones to make sports then.
what do you mean?
Like, since they seem to be very physical people with
Yeah,
a lot of their
they're
good
very
work.
physical. While Soliben's group really stayed around their home, Herek's people really did they did more. They did like yeah, when you think about it, Sullivan's people really did just stay around a temple and just keep scriptures and such. They weren't very powerful until well, I'll get to that later.
Everything
Anyway,
gets gotten to later.
I can't get ahead of myself. So with Herek, you know, they got into gambling and they became, okay, if I win, then you have to do this. And after a long time, that would become a slavery. Like, oh, I'll own you after that. There were also
Oh.
strict marriage laws. There was marriage because Telo had, you know, announced that there was always one for each other for the first
Mm-hmm.
200. So that sort of became inherited that you have to marry someone.
Okay.
You know, they called it something different, but you know, you bonded yourself to someone, whether they liked it or not. Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But I do want to tell real quick. Don't think that women are lesser in this world. There is no Eve. I want to make that clear right away. There is no Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So women are about the same as men.
Okay.
There is a very big distinction between masculinity and femininity, but they are not uh, underneath the other.
They're about equal.
Yeah, they're about equal. Like women would wrestle, you know.
Yeah.
They would make jokes such as, "Oh, you're just a woman, you can't do this," but you know, it was all it wasn't in a suppressive way.
Just kind of, oh, you're not a man. You can't do this certain thing.
Because as I said, there is a distinction between femininity and masculinity. I do that. Um, well, yes, I that is the world. That is the world. But I also want to say that that is like it's also a way for me to simplify. You know, because
Right.
this is written because I'm writing this more as a history book. And I don't want to get into like detail like oh they're all so you know I like having that divide.
Right.
Well, so I want to explain one really interesting thing about that marriage. And so there was no polygamy in this society. It was very monogamous. You only have
Right.
one wife and you only have one husband. So,
Because everybody for each other.
but there was no factorial law in place. So say you were with a husband you didn't want to be with.
Mm-hmm.
You would go and wrestle another man's wife. You would see the man you wanted, but he has a wife. So you go and
Okay.
wrestle the wife, and if you won, then you got her husband.
Okay.
And you left your other husband, and the other wife, you know, she lost, and so she doesn't get anything.
Oh, okay.
So you know that's how it worked. Like it was a very dominating society at the same time.
Okay.
But yes, they did do a lot of exploring. Herek's group was the first one. Well, it was really the one that fell apart the quickest. Herek died about 2 years after he had founded, you know, Herek.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had died from wrestling. He
What
cracked
a
his
way to
head
go.
open, so it
I mean,
sort of
what
came
else
to
would
bite
you
him back.
expect from Herek? What else would you expect?
Repeat that?
What else would you expect from Herek?
Good
I
point.
mean, really?
Well, so his group kind of, while people did stay in Herrick, there were a few people that are like, okay, this is a bit too violent. I don't, like, I want to have children now. this is a bit too much for me. So they would leave, and they were really the group that settled Columni. Now I'll talk a little bit more about Columni, and I think I'll cut the video after this.
Okay.
So I want to say there is post Mavros. I guess I'll end with Mavros. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good because then people
Well,
know
no, because then I still have to talk about Gregorion and such. So no, I'll talk about post Mavros Columni a little bit, and then I'll cut the video. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a world. This current world that they were exploring was dry compared to our own. Well, yes, it did have plants. It had rain and such. There were only it was the only water, like the bodies of water. There were no oceans. There were lakes and rivers, and they connected.
Okay.
And what lakes there were very small. They most of them were about as big as large ponds.
Okay.
So they weren't big. So it was but they also had rivers. So this is a more dry world.
Right.
So these people would travel. They would go into their own little villages, and they had started naming these places after the people who had founded them. After Herek.
Right.
So they would name their own places. And there was this one village that met with the temple. They had traveled south enough to where they had actually found where Soliben had started, and from them they had learned how to carve rock. And since they were hardy people, they actually knew better, and they actually improved the technique. No longer was it just crude structures, but they actually started knowing how to make blocks, like actual blocks, and they joined the temple and actually built up the temple to look better than it was. They actually they started making columns and such. This is around 100 years, maybe 150. Like I said, this is ancient history, so it's sort of well, yes, it's fast because they had the goddess there. It is still kind of cryptic. It's very hard to keep up with each and every minute detail.
Right. I do want to add, I think it's kind of funny, they added columns to the temple. I guess that's like adding the globe to a church.
Wait, are you saying that because they sit on a column?
Yeah.
I like that. But I'm just saying that they're as they're progressing.
Right.
They're actually it became a more civilized. So a small city state is starting around. So this is where I'll leave off the video where Herek is now building up, and where the temple is now building up.
Okay.
The people who have learned masonry are now going over to Herek, and they're also teaching those people, so that the wooden fortress that they built a wooden fortress there. Now it's no longer a wooden fortress that is falling apart all the time and is burning down all the time. They are actually teaching them how to build.
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming a more progressive world. They're not very spread apart. Although this is a huge world, it's pretty huge. It is not. It's a very close knit, and they will be going farther through through the land. I do want to let that be known. And it's 12:06 here, so I think it's time for me to end the video. But do you have any questions? Do you want to talk about anything?
I think what you've said is really interesting so far. You've given like the really almost prehistory history of Columni. So I don't know. It's 12:04 for me, so I can't really think of any questions right now. My brain's kind of on low energy mode. Um, hmm. I guess maybe the question I have is when do we get to hear about Mavros?
Uh, you guys are gonna love Navris. I do want to say that while I did start off with a very realistic beginning, this world is fantasy, and Crystal has heard of Mavris before. Do you want to don't tell of what's going to happen, but what is Mavris?
Basically, a giant mud crab.
And you guys are gonna love it. And when she says giant, I mean,
I'm not kidding.
yeah. It's not. It's just as exaggerated as you want it to be. Trust me. And it's going to be big. It is going to be big. I promise you.
Let's just say Columni was a little less dry after he came around.
Oh, but you guys are gonna love it. Actually, there is one more thing I do want to talk about, though, because it'll lead into Mavros.
Okay, yeah, let's leave off before Mavros, and then the next video we can talk about Mavros.
Like this isn't exactly before Mavros, but I'll go into it. Mavros is going to be after a big event, but so during this entire time, after the temple is founded, Telo was very proud in what she had saw with the coming of man. And as I said before, she is not omnipotent. Soliben had been writing a record of human history. And he had a few seers who wrote the future.
Oh, so they could actually see it. They could see the future?
It was a very cryptic future. They saw symbols, and they wrote the symbols. So he had very, very powerful seers, and they created this gigantic scroll.
Okay.
And these will be called the Scrolls of Creation because they taught of how they went into the very fine details of the universe, how it was created, and what is going to happen. They had tapped into time's fate. This is a very, very powerful tool. I will even say it's a tool of mass destruction, depending on who gets it. So,
oh, and I know who gets it.
yes, you're gonna love it. But Telo was very impressed, and while she wanted this scroll, she bided her time, and she even enchanted the scroll with her own magic. This scroll would be a moving one, like the symbols that they had written down would play, if that makes any sense.
It does. Like they would dance around on the page, maybe?
Yes, yes.
Have some sort of magical type of chime noise when you opened it up, maybe?
Yes, it's think of it as like a tapestry, and it's a moving tapestry.
Oh, okay.
And it was also very specific, as it would to who would bring it who would open it, it would show something. It would show something that was relevant to them or what they wanted, and it was a very corruptive tool. But I'll talk about that next video when it becomes more important. It'll be way
Okay.
more important in this next video. I hope we do this soon. And are you ready to end it?
I am. And I had fun listening to this. I got to learn more about Columni, and I didn't know half of the things you told, more than half of the things you told me this time. You've definitely developed it more since we last talked about this.
I'm
And
so
now I
happy.
actually know where those scrolls came from. But I still know who gets them.
All right, so this is so much fun. We should do this. We should do this within the week or something. But well, anyways, we'll talk about that later. Anyways, this is Nolan, and I'm signing off. And Crystal, or Pariswinkle, or Periwinkle.
Thank you so much for watching this video with Nolan. If you want, you can go check out his, what was it, Blogspot?
His what?
Your, where you were updating Columni. Was it your Blogspot?
Oh, I don't want to talk about the blog because I lost the password.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't done that in
Well,
forever.
we don't talk about that. Well, what do you want me to, tell them to go check out? Just your YouTube channel, I guess?
Yeah, just keep coming back to the YouTube channel. Just look in your updates. You'll find me eventually. Just look for the very, very, very obscure YouTube channel, which is what I do because I don't do anything.
Actually, if you just subscribe, it would be easier because every time I try to search up Nolan Johnson, there are so many Nolan Johnsons.
Which is surprising.
I cannot find your channel. I know. So, if you would like to keep updated with Nolan, please subscribe or check out some more of my.
Watch her videos because she'll force me to do a bunch of what I don't want to do. She'll like link to me.
Please subscribe to him or check out some more of his videos. Maybe both of you would like. And don't forget to leave him suggestions, comments on what you liked and what you want to hear more of, because I'm sure he will want to go into detail. And give him some thumbs up. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I need it. All right.
And if you want to check out and see who I am,
Don't worry, I'll link you.
And okay, I have all my links in my description, so you can just copy paste that. It's fine.
All right.
I have a YouTube channel where I upload speed paintings and vlogs. Sometimes I will do collaborations with other artists. Currently, I have some projects going on, so I'm a little bit busy at the moment, but maybe that'll free up soon and I'll be able to do more. And I have a Facebook page where you can get updates from me. And I also post things like tutorials, and sometimes I will feature other artists' work. I will always credit them. So, I mean, just edit this out. I'm being really awkward. Leave
Nah,
the Facebook thing in
I'm
and
not
edit
editing this. I hope you know that.
Shoot.
This is too perfect.
No, please.
No, like I'm not editing this entire video. I think it's just too personal.
Oh, well.
I'm just gonna put it up as it. I'll do some. I'll edit like paintings or I'll edit artwork into it and such. But otherwise, I'm not messing with the audio.
Oh well.
Anyways, we should wrap this up. I'm Nolan.
All my links are in the description. I've got a YouTube, Facebook, DeviantArt, Instagram, Newgrounds, and a Redbubble. So if you want to go check any of that out, please feel free to. Nolan's content is probably, most likely, going to be better than mine. Probably not as frequent as mine, though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm not much. When I do upload something, I try to make it the best, but I just don't upload that much.
You need to stop being such a perfectionist and just upload.
I'm not a perfectionist. I'm just lazy.
I mean, I'm not saying to make, crap, but
Oh, you're such a critic. Anyways, let us wrap this up. You already posted. You already said all your own advertising.
Let's stop.
So yeah. Let's just say goodbye. So I'm Nolan, and I say bye.
はい、このビデオをご覧になってありがとうございました。では、また次のビデオまでに。バイバイ。
Good morning, good evening, and good night.